Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. The customary, really difficult question that we usually have at the beginning of every month got preempted by Strixhaven Week this time around. So I wanted to make good on that one, since a lot of people have been asking for a little bit harder questions lately. So, here's what we've got today. Amy controls Garruk's Horde, and the top card of her library is a Grizzly Bears that she wants to cast. So, she moves that Grizzly Bears onto the stack. Then, she needs to activate some mana abilities to make some mana. So, she activates Selvala, Explorer Returned. Her opponent only has a basic island. However, the card that Amy reveals is Elvish Spirit Guide. Now, here's the question. Amy does not have any other sources of mana available. Can Amy exile the Elvish Spirit Guide to make the other green mana she needs to finish casting Grizzly Bears? If not, what happens? Alright, so first thing that I wanted to address is that yes, it is legal for Amy to activate Selvala in the middle of casting a spell like this. The reason is because Selvala's ability, wacky though it may be, does qualify as a mana ability. That is, it's an activated ability that has no targets and isn't a loyalty ability and could add mana to Amy's mana pool. With that out of the way, one reason that I really like this question as a difficult one is because getting the right answer relies on knowing a lot of really obscure rules that don't really come up very often. For example, this one here. If you draw a card in the middle of casting a spell, you draw that card face down, and while it's face down, it's not considered to have any abilities. It stays face down until you finish casting that spell. So with that, we have the answer to the first part of our question. No, Amy cannot exile Elvish Spirit Guide to make mana in order to continue casting Grizzly Bears. Because when she draws the Elvish Spirit Guide, she draws it in the middle of casting a spell, so it's drawn face down and has no characteristics. Alright, so there's that. Now what will happen to Amy and her Grizzly Bears? Well, would you believe it, the CR has us covered in this spot too. Anytime a player starts to cast a spell, but finds out for whatever reason, in the middle of casting it, that they cannot complete the casting legally, well, casting that spell was an illegal action. And the CR describes a process for backing up the game state to the moment before the spell cast was started. To see what that would look like here, first, Amy would move the Grizzly Bears from the stack back to the top of her library. And here's where another really interesting bit happens. Usually, in the process of undoing the casting, you would also undo any mana abilities that you performed while you were casting that spell. However, mana abilities that caused a card to change zones, like Selvala's, are not undone. So that means that Selvala stays tapped and the card that Amy drew stays in her hand. Pretty interesting, right? That means that Amy still has the green mana from Selvala activation in her mana pool, and she still has the Spirit Guide in her hand, which means that she can continue from where she left off and begin casting the Grizzly Bears again. This time, certain in the fact that she'll be able to finish casting it because she already has the Spirit Guide available. Pretty interesting stuff. Now, one other thing that I wanted to touch on while I'm talking about this situation. There's another rule that says that if the top card of your library is being revealed, and it changes during the process of casting a spell, like what happens here, the new card is not revealed until, you guessed it, the casting of the spell is completed. That means that Amy will not, at any point during the first attempt of casting Grizzly Bears, see what the card underneath Elvish Spirit Guide was. She will need to wait until after the Grizzly Bears is completely cast in order to do that. And the reasoning is pretty simple, probably for the same exact reason as what we saw before. It's not possible to undo the gaining of information like that, so therefore the game would want to make sure that we're really going to be able to cast that Grizzly Bears before revealing that information to her. And that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again tomorrow for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.